Hi, I'm Daniel Thornton, Head of Music and Creative Arts here at AC, and this is the introductory video to Compose Music for Screen, CUAMCP502. This would have to be probably my favourite unit across the Diploma of Music Industry course. I have always had a love of film music, especially composers like John Williams, although there's so many composers that I love in that space. And I've always found music written for film to be, I don't know, something that I think my challenge with music for music's sake is that I get kind of bored of that. I really love the fact that music can add so much to other elements, to visual elements, to spoken elements, that it can create emotion where there otherwise wouldn't have been emotion. It can heighten emotion. It can create conflicting emotions with what you're watching. Music is so powerful with visuals, and so I really do love composing for screen. So you'll get all of my passion in this unit. Let's take a look at some of the content, and then we can talk about the learning outcomes and the assessments. So we introduce a little bit of the history of how music for visual media came about, and then we explore the differences between film, TV, and game music. We spent actually a couple of weeks on the history of film music, and then we start to get into some of the more practical stuff, like talking about the composer's brief. So, what it is that a director or a producer might be asking you to do, and what a spotting session looks like, and all of that. That's in the next week. We talk about the other people who might be helping you in this process. So the music team, which might be sound engineers, might be instrumentalists, vocalists that you've called in for specific tasks. And then we start to look at the technology that's available to you, and composing for visual media with only technological elements, so virtual instruments and samplers and synths and that, or the other side of composing music for live performance that will be recorded, and the different challenges and different opportunities that exist in those. We talk about orchestration, orchestration is so important because different instruments create different emotions, create different they create certain colours that express different, not only different emotions, but kind of different contexts. You can easily set something in history by what instruments you use. You can easily set something within a culture by using certain instruments. It's a lot of fun. We talk about recording and syncing, mixing and mastering, and then we touch on animation and even on songs and source music within film scoring, and also the business of film scoring. So generally when you're writing for TV, film, you are your own boss, and you're having to put together a contract, and understanding some of the licenses and things that are required for that space is really great. So that covers all of the learning outcomes. There's 4 learning outcomes: participate in pre-production phase of screen productions, generate ideas for screen music, create and orchestrate theme and incidental music, and evaluate work. And the way that we measure those are through 3 assessments. The first is a pre-production diary, and so we actually would want to get you working ideally with a filmmaker. Now, sometimes that's not possible, and there are films without musical soundtracks on Moodle, so you could use one of those. But ideally, if you can find someone who's making a film for something, even if it's just an advertisement, or if it's something for church news, or if it's something for for the family, for some family celebration, like some big anniversary or a big birthday. But hopefully you can connect with a filmmaker. It certainly doesn't, there's certainly ways to do it if you can't, but hopefully you can connect with a filmmaker, and then you begin those dialogues with them about what they're looking for, and then, the time frames and perhaps budgets if there are any, and the production values and all of that. And you keep a pre-production diary, and that's assessment 1. Assessment 2 is actually composing that music for screen, for the whatever the media is that you're working on. And finally, to match that 4th learning outcome, assessment 3 is evaluating music for screen. And this, instead of just you evaluating this, I have the task here is that 3 people, you would collate 3 people's evaluation. Your evaluation, the filmmakers, and someone else involved in the process. So maybe you had a musician involved, or maybe you had a sound engineer involved. Now, again, that's the ideal, and there are situations where there aren't 3 people involved, and therefore you can't get 3 evaluations. But there are ways around that. There might be, you might bring someone independent in to listen to the piece, a friend or a relative, to give you some feedback from their perspective, and that might be a way around that. So often this particular unit is so much fun, but it can also be a challenge for people to try and find an opportunity to fulfill all the assessment requirements. Don't get yourself too concerned about that. There are always ways of demonstrating your competency across the learning outcomes, but definitely have fun with it. It's such a wonderful experience to write music and then to see it working with the visual element and bringing something to the people who are watching that they never would have experienced before you had added that musical element.